G'day and welcome to the Campfire Project. And today I'm first of all here with Mick Hawes, the CEO of Builders Business Black Belt. How are you, Mick?
Oh, I'm terrific. Thanks for having us on, Alan.
Oh, you're welcome. And getting me to recite 3 words with B in the front of it, getting tongue-tied there real easy. And then we have Scott Carson, who is a co-host of the Campfire Project. G'day, Scott. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Alan. Glad to be here again.
Excellent. And then we have a beautiful compliment with Shari Ware, who is the health mindset specialist. How are you, Shari?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for being here. And we've been talking about the subject today. What have we learnt this year? How have we grown? And what gifts or blessings did we see through the year? And I was thinking, Shari, would you like to start us off, please?
Yep, sure. One of the biggest lessons that I've learnt this year is that it doesn't matter what happens, we're always able to find a way. That is human nature. We're always going to find a way to get through it, or to I don't really like to say survive. It feels negative to me. So I want to say that we always find our way to thriving in the end. Sometimes it might take a little bit of a detour, I guess. It might not be a straight road, but we always do get there in the end, and that's been a real recurring theme for me this year.
Excellent. And how about for you, Mick?
I think probably the most profound thing that I learned, and I kind of knew it, but it really got confirmed through this year, particularly because of the pandemic, was just the power and the value of belonging to a community, and the regular conversation. Don't need to necessarily get together and teach each other anything or learn anything, but just getting together. So back when we got into that very first lockdown in March, it looked like it was going to affect builders pretty badly. It didn't end up affecting them as badly as we thought, but one of the things we introduced was a daily momentum call. So at 11 o'clock every single day, 7 days a week, I would just open up Zoom, and whoever in our Black Belt membership wanted to jump on and have a chat and ask questions did. It started to grow in popularity. A couple of months after that, people were saying that conversation every day saved my business. And we've kept doing that. Now, I'm not doing it 7 days a week because, as I told you before we got in here, I bought a yacht. So I've got to go out on the yacht. I can't be doing that every single day. So we have a momentum call 4 days a week. So I get Fridays off doing it. And it is amazing the mindset shift that I have had and these builders have had. Because if you had traditionally said to a builder, hey, one of the secrets to improving your business is putting 1 hour aside, probably at the most inconvenient time there is for a builder during the day, to have discussions with other builders to keep your head in the right space, share ideas, share wins and losses, lessons, and ask any questions, would be the best thing you could do for your business. 99% of builders would say, mate, I haven't got time for that. It happened by accident. It happened through necessity. And some of the feedback that I've gotten now, because we've now been going for many months doing this, is not only has it saved businesses, they're talking about saving relationships, in some cases saving lives, which it freaks me out. It absolutely freaks me out. But that's my number one lesson, is belong to a community and speak to them regularly. You don't have to learn anything, you don't have to teach anything, just be there and share.
And that connection. Scott, how about you?
It's funny, like if I go now to share with you what I've learnt this year, and it's well, where do I begin, to be honest, because there's just been so many opportunities this year. Belonging to a community, like I've been lucky enough to speak to a couple of mixed members, and that community that they've created by speaking daily has made a huge difference to them. And the support they give each other is just phenomenal. But my number one thing this year is just the importance of important, you know, and this year I've had some tough decisions I've had to make, and one of the toughest ones was whether or not I forge ahead in different careers, and, you know, but I chose to support my family for a difficult time emotionally. And I think that's paid major dividends for me, because if I had done it any other way, I wouldn't be married, I wouldn't be here. And, you know, it's a tough journey, you know, sacrificing, you know, certain things in order to support what's important, you know. And yeah, but I think there's one thing that's come out of it for me is just how beautiful people are, you know. And I keep talking about it, the fact that I have never met anybody that doesn't add value to my life. And, you know, I can't wait. In a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to share on a Thursday night exactly what I've learned this year, because it's been huge, you know. And pretty much everyone on screen with me today now, you know, we've all shared that. So, yeah, it's been a beautiful year, you know. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of communities, you know. Campfire, Sunday Sessions, Brotherhood. I made that in Tasmania. You know.
That community, as you say, that's a connection for me. It's one of the things I realised, that even though we had this so-called social distancing, it was more like a physical distancing as far as I was concerned, because socially I've never been more connected. We've had more panel discussions and one-on-one interviews in this last year since COVID, since we had in the year and a bit before that. And it's just people, you know, as you say, everybody adds value. And okay, I'm a profiler, and yes, your face tells me your personality, so I do read books by their cover, but then I can see through that cover as well, and there's so much beauty beneath that cover. And look at some of the people that we've been dealing with, and the journey that they've come on from where we would have seen them or perceived them to be before to what they're actually doing now. We've found depth of beauty, of strength, of character that normally we wouldn't see in people, but the situation really brought that out and allowed me to look at people in a lot more joyful way than what I was before.
Certainly brought out the best in people in a lot of ways, and I feel like a lot of people didn't realise just what they were capable of until they were put into situations where they felt the need to step up, which is really beautiful. And just going back to what Mick was saying about, and what you were saying as well about community, and the conversation aspect. There's so much value in conversation. There's also value in going inwards and reflecting. However, there's also so much value in having conversation, and it can just be talking things out. You might not even be having, it may only be a one-sided conversation. Like I could be having a conversation with you and I could just be talking things out. But that can still give me a different level of insight, a different perspective just by that very act. So it's so valuable to be having these communities where people can do that.
That's it.
I'm a part of a community at the moment, the Victorian Brotherhood Suicide Awareness Group, and we're running Zoom calls 4 nights a week. The conversations in there, we're teaching men how to communicate, and these conversations are going for 4 to 5 hours, and men are just sharing and opening up in a way that I've never seen before. They're completely owning their space and sharing their story, and other men are listening. And Zoom's been the most perfect platform for that, because you cannot talk over anybody. You have to sit, you have to listen, because I think we'd all agree communication has got nothing to do with the words coming out of your mouth. It's the capability of listening, learning, and sharing the response. And I'm going to give it a plug at the minute, and I'm sorry, but hashtag raise a pen. I finally got the pens in, right? It's 2 brothers committed suicide within 24 hours. We didn't get to them. So all the guys were raising a glass to celebrate their lives, and myself and Vaughan Williams sat down and said, enough, had enough of this. So we're going to, instead of raising a glass, we're going to raise a pen, We're going to sit down and write down what's going on in our lives, and then we're going to honour those guys by making sure we do something about that. Celebrating with, instead of having a drink, you can celebrate with a pen too. Sit down and write down to somebody what you feel about them, how you feel about them, the emotions that you feel. You've got a newborn baby coming into the world, you're a grandparent. What an amazing gift to that grandchild if you could sit down there and let them know the joy that they've just brought into your life and share that experience. Because like a pen, the most expensive product in the world, a liquid product in the world, is ink. We're all pens. What's inside us is the gold when we give it to one another, and we do it so well in the Campfire Project. We do it so well, you know, in our daily meetings, Mick. You know, like they're the keys. We're the key. If we're brave enough to own us and then share it. So, sorry.
Hey, that's what these conversations are about. It's open to everybody to share, and you know, this is where we, as you said, Shari, you can be talking, and it's different when you got someone there because you know there's a pair of ears. If that person just holds that space and listens and goes, okay, the other person needs to speak. I don't need to do anything. I don't have to fix anything. I can just sit there and listen to their story. And half the time that person, the other person will walk away and go, that was the best conversation I've had. I really got a lot of value out of that. I learned so much. Well, they learned about themselves. It wasn't anybody else teaching them. It's what they learned.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the most important things is being there for other people. I know that, I mentioned this before, I went down to Canberra when my second oldest boy was still living there before he moved over to the other side of Australia. I'd sit down at the dinner table with my two oldest grandchildren, and, you know, everyone's fairly quiet. So I just got them asking, well, what are you grateful for today? Anyway, that went on for the couple of days that I was there. Every time we sat down, that was the conversation. I went back a couple of months later, and as soon as we sat down at the dinner table, my granddaughter's asking everybody, 11-year-old at the time, was asking everybody, what are you grateful for? And they'd been doing that since I went. And I just looked, the fact that she was now asking people, she was running this. So she'd stepped up and taken that role. And now I know the next step that people are talking about now, it's not so much what are you grateful for, but who did you help today? Starting out with that one, and then that leads into the grateful feelings that they have when they spent that time helping somebody else, and then recognizing while they're talking about it, how much they did impact on the other person, and then being grateful that they were able to do something for that person.
There's always somebody that we can help, and it doesn't, sometimes it's even in ways that we don't realize. It could just be doing a video on social media that somebody is going to hear right at the time that they need it, a post that they need to see right at that time. So many ways that we can help.
One of the things that became very apparent and important was, and I'm not sure whether Scott mentioned it, he came and spoke to our group at the last 2-day intensive, made everybody cry. But I'm not sure whether it was Scott that said it. I'll give you credit just in case you said it. If you didn't, somebody else, I'm sorry to that somebody. But they were just talking about that good old, you know, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help everyone else. And it's so, I guess it seems simpler, and you tend to gravitate to helping somebody else before you help yourself. And something that one of you just said a moment ago triggered a thought from one of our guys. I think you know him, Dean, up in Launceston, Scott, started to create a happiness index for himself and his team. So every day they kind of give themselves a mark on their own happiness. And you know, the old adage of, you know, business adage of what gets measured, what gets measured gets managed. Became true with that. They were measuring their happiness index. Like, I mean, very few people think, you know, let's put a number to my happiness today, and then you end up in either a conversation with somebody else or yourself as to why that's the case, why you've got a high number or why you've got a low number or whatever, but whatever gets measured gets managed. And from that conversation, another one of our black belt members, he sends me communication through Basecamp every day, and it's got about 7 to 10 points on it. One of which is, you know, how happy am I? But another point is, you know, what did I do for somebody else that was unexpected today? Little things like that. What am I grateful for, or what am I proud of? What am I looking forward to was another one of the questions. And so just having these questions in front of you on a daily basis to bring into your conscious awareness, how the bloody hell am I feeling and why am I feeling that way? I think we can go a long way, you know, to put your own oxygen mask on first, to be able to be in a better position to help others. We all want to help others. I mean, we're on this discussion tonight because we all have a need and a desire to help others. And I just need to keep coming back to, for myself, and I like other people to be reminded of this as well. Please put your own oxygen mask on first, because to be able to help other people and to be able to help more people and be able to help them in a deeper way, you've got to be in top shape. So we really have to look after ourselves. And just asking the question, I found, you know, through the example of these other people this year, has been pretty profound. It was a great idea, and I'm glad they shared it.
That's very true, isn't it? If you're always there helping everybody else, you're going to get run down, and eventually you're giving them less than what you can give, and you're in the way of somebody else who could be helping them, because you're taking up that space. So, you know, stepping back and, you know, getting yourself, you know, looking after yourself first, and then being able to, you know, go and help other people more effectively.
And it's been interesting in the last, you know, we've been doing black belt for about 7 years now, that sort of having a 35,000 foot overview of what's gone on. I've noticed there has been a bit of a pattern that the guys that tended to be struggling the most business-wise, like they were really under the pump financially, having all sorts of challenges in their business, for some reason were always the first and the most consistent to jump up and help anybody else in that needed help, which was great. But that kind of got me thinking, how do we get this message across to put your own oxygen mask on first? Because like, I just couldn't appreciate them enough for the effort that they were putting in to help other people, particularly in the situation that they are in. But you could see that the energy that they had was being given away to other people, and you could just see them, you know, deteriorating themselves, you know, and at some stage you just run out of gas, and then instead of being able to help people, you become somebody who needs to be helped, which brings us to another. I hope this is a really good segue, Shari.
It is a really
Be
good
able to ask for help. How good was that?
Very well done. Very
You
well.
knew it had happened.
I knew we'd get there eventually. And it's such an important thing. So many people struggle with asking for help. And it's really important to know that it's completely okay, that it's completely normal, that everybody needs help at some point in their life. And there's so many people that want to help us. They just need to know that we need that help.
See, I stopped and I thought about it and thought, right, how do I feel when I'm helping other people? I feel great. And I also want to help people, so help them to feel great as well. Ask for help and let them help you. And that took me a long time to learn that one. There's, you know, a number of people in the Campfire Project, one on screen at the moment who I won't mention, who keeps reminding me of that. Well, at the same time, I've been reminding him of that as well. So.
I've got a really great analogy, and it's I did the 5 love languages. And I know a lot of people have done that. And a lot of people, gifts is not high as a love language. And a lot of that is because for whatever reason we've been raised a lot of us have been raised with this concept that we should give, but it's better to give than to receive. And as part of the love languages, somebody turned around to us as a group and said, how do you feel when you give a gift? Do you feel, we feel really good? Well, it's really selfish of us if we don't allow other people to feel the same way by giving to us and us receiving. And it made me really think, and I thought, oh, yes.
Yeah, and see, this business about it's better to give than to receive. That's a load of rubbish, because you can't give without receiving.
Yeah.
One's not better than the other, because they are, they're like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do well without having the other one happening at the time. There's an immediate transfer of energy. You help somebody else. Why do I help other people? Because I feel good about it. So I've received.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a great topic, because this is the one question that I got nailed by my son with. Why do you give so much and then you can't receive? And, you know, that's...
And what's the answer, Scott?
Well, it's fascinating that, because I get the gift of people consistently. And I get honesty from people that other people don't get. I have a 93-year-old neighbour who I'm interviewing next week, and she's a major part of my life. Her husband passed away, and when he passed away, she came up. She came in, said, Derek's passed away. Oscar grabbed a chair for her to sit down, and then went and got a glass of water. And then we sat down and we spoke to her for an hour and a half, and we just shared all the great stories, you know. And so we sat down the other day, and she said, what are you going to interview him? What is it about me? I said, you've got a lifetime of opportunities. But she goes, you give me so much. I said, fantastic. I said, do you see what you do for me and my son? He gets to learn how to care for people, because he comes down here and speaks with you. He gets to learn how to talk about death, because your husband passed away. When your cat passed away, you came to us to bury him, because you knew you were safe. Oscar was there for that. What happened in that scenario is we buried the cat nice and deep, so because she's going to pass away and they'll all knock over the house. We picked a location where Toby wouldn't be dug up. We sat down and we planned that out, and we worked out how buildings get built. We worked out where the building plan would be. Then we made it a safe place for Toby to be. I got to teach Oscar skills about building. I got to teach him skills about, you know, how to map things out and how to plan things. And then once Toby was in the ground, he's gone up to her garden, picked flowers, and then sat them over his grave. As I said to Maureen, I said, you don't think that you don't give to me. You're giving my son an education in life you cannot get anywhere else, because you share your life with us. You know, I'm the greediest man alive. I get the truth and honesty from people, and love and just emotions. I'm so greedy. The fuel I need for that is something that I'm learning to ask for. I'm putting together packages so I can understand and actually ask for that. But it's understanding for me that, you know, and it's my own fault because I don't invest my time in understanding my finances and learning to package that up better so that I can go and do that, because I'm so invested in seeing people grow, and, you know, it's coming, you know. But I'm now learning to ask for help. I'm learning to say, hey, listen, you know, JobKeeper's running out now. I need to get fuel in order to support the phenomenal things that we're doing. I'm having to learn this one myself. But here's the thing. I've got people around me who support me. I've got people around me who hold me accountable to make sure that I'm looking after that. My circle of influence is the key to that, you know, and it's something that I'm becoming, as much as both Alan and Mick, you know, circle of influence is everything. Mick is the guy that taught me about it. So, but that is so important. And inside the Campfire Project, the circle of influence is so big. And it's all from love space and a care for one another. It is beautiful. We're all helping each other just by sitting here, listening. I've already got a half a page of notes. So, yeah.
Raise a pen.
Yeah, raise it consistently. And that's one thing I've learned this year as well. You know, I sit there with a pen and I write down the notes because because that's going to help me grow, and it's going to help guys grow. I'm watching it 4 nights a week. I'm watching guys sit there and then work through scenarios, share their story, and then write down notes. They're now coming into the campfire to watch these conversations so that they can grow even further. What a gift. So, you know, yeah. So, and yeah, I'll pass it back for a minute. Otherwise I'll keep talking.
But this is what I loved about the Campfire Project. Everybody, as you said, is doing exactly as Scott said, but we're now connecting with everybody else. The connection and the community. It's not just the Campfire Project community, it's all the other groups and the communities, they're coming together. And there is no one centre or anything else. It's all these communities are coming together and working together. I love the fact that there are so many people in here who have sat in the background, have gone, well, I don't really have a story to tell. Well, they do, because they've got a story, it's worth telling. But as you've said, like the older people, you know, when you interviewed your father, for instance, and he hasn't done an interview from what I understand in the past of any type, he was able to open up, and the impact he had on the other people who listened to that interview. And then we've got older men again and older women. They get to that point where they go, well, what's my life about? It's about that knowledge you've stored up over all that time. Share that with the people around you. And when you're able to get our kids talking to our parents and to other people's parents and other people's children, this is when we come together as a community. As I say, it takes a community to raise a family or to raise children. And I truly believe that we need to be connected in that way. So that's a bit of a challenge to everybody else out there who's got mothers and fathers who are still alive. Interview them. Come and get interviewed yourself, and then interview your parents, because the knowledge that you will learn about them will be something, a lot of stuff you don't know about. And I guarantee that when you share it, there'll be so many other people who will get value out of it. And there's a gift you can give to your parents.
Can I ask to just pop on the table to unpack why people think it's so difficult to ask for help? Because the insight that Shari shared, you know, we're ripping people off if we don't give them the opportunity to help. I've talked to our black belt group over and over and over about that, because they all leap to the assistance of somebody else that they can see in trouble. But the amount of times that you've noticed someone's not doing so well, and you've kind of asked some questions, and you find out that this has happened and that's happened, and it happened weeks ago or months ago, and you kind of ask, how come you didn't put that on the table, or run toward us like our agreement states, and we could have sort of nipped this in the bud. It didn't need to be as big as it is. We talk about that until you're blue in the face. So I'm just wondering if we can put that question on the table. Why is it so difficult to ask for help? We don't necessarily need to have solutions, but perhaps just unpacking why it is so difficult to ask for help, we might come up with some insights, or make it easier for some people to ask for help.
We haven't learned how. We haven't learned how to ask, because we think everything's insignificant when it's actually not. You know, like I sit there time after time talking to people, and they think they're insignificant. And if you want to see an amazing interview, watch my interview I just did with Trevor. He's a guy that thinks he's got nothing to offer, right? He's probably one of the most beautiful men I've ever met, and thinks he's got nothing to offer. People don't understand that the liquid gold is actually them. And if they actually put their hand up and say, hey, listen, you know, I've got this little hiccup. Little hiccups become massive problems if they're not addressed. A problem isn't the problem. It's the way we respond to the problem that becomes either the lesson, the opportunity, or the pain. It's only one of those three things. But we haven't been taught how to put our hands up and say it, because we've been so busy talked to all of our lives that we haven't been allowed to actually speak. That's the one thing that I noticed with Oscar, is the fact that he's allowed to say whatever he likes. If it's incorrect, or if we can correct it, that's fine. But he doesn't make mistakes. He only makes lessons. The only opportunities in life are to lesson, right? It's the only thing he has to do is learn. Everything else is negotiable, which brings it back to another lesson. So I think personally, I think now we're actually starting to learn that it is okay to actually put your hand up. But the more we talk about it, the more it's going to become acceptable. You know, it's no different to mental health. Mental health 10 years ago wasn't a subject. Now we're talking about it left, right, and centre. We're courteous of it, and we're starting to understand it. You know, social media, all those different platforms with all that information coming through and hammering us has actually given us the opportunity to go, whoa, hang on a second, it's too much. We actually have to learn about these opportunities now. You know, so which for me brings up the other opportunity that we only ever know what we know based upon the experiences we've had in life. And until we have new experiences, it's impossible to learn anything. So bringing it back into conversations, that's why conversation is the most perfect thing in this sort of platform. You know, I find it inside the groups that I'm running. Guys really get triggered now when someone talks over the top because they're learning the importance of hearing. And that's never been a conversation. You know, guys are actively doing that. You know, the lucky few who have been educated in the way of communication that learn how to listen, awesome. But we're learning that. You know, for me, and I'm going to go a little bit off topic, just to surprise you. But
Again, unusual.
Yeah, unusual. No, but
Something completely new.
but something for me that just like I really want to knock on the head, right? Everyone talks about toxic masculinity and narcissism, and it really shits me because take responsibility for how you respond. Take responsibility for your own trigger. It's your trigger that's creating that. Understand your trigger. Get curious about your trigger. One of the things I teach the guys in a minute is if you're getting triggered, awesome. Sit down and write down what's triggering me about this. And then let's find the answers. And then all of a sudden you've gone from anger to curiosity to, oh, okay.
Understanding.
Yeah, understanding. Accept, understand, respond. The three keys to anything. And on Sunday night, we had a significant opportunity that just took up Sunday, took up Monday, and took up Tuesday. It put a big hole in everything I was been doing. Pretty serious. But we brought it into the conversation. We got all the guys who were involved in the conversation. We sat down, we listened to each and every one of them, how they felt, what they thought they could do better, what we thought we could do better. Every person, 20-something guys. It takes time to do that and to listen. But the benefit is we all understood everybody else's point of view. We all listened without the opportunity. Now we're responding with more care and love towards the person that just was in pain, and we just needed to hold space. It would be nice if we didn't have to get to that and he had to put his hand up earlier and said, hey, I need help. But sometimes we've got to go to a pain point before that happens.
Yeah, it was, when I look at this, I look at it from the point of view of not saying what we should do or what they should do or anything else. The only person that I know is me, and I can only talk about it from my point of view as to why I don't ask for help and then doing that. But as you said, first of all, the pen, as you said, ink is one of the most expensive words on the planet. But if I break that pen in half and the ink just fell all over the table, it's worthless. What gives it value, as we've been saying there, Scott, is when we put our heart into it and we actually write. It's our input that gives it a greater value than what it costs to actually produce the ink in the first place. And so that's the first important thing. You know, as far as, well, I look at why I didn't ask for help because of my upbringing, and the only one I could rely on, I felt, was me. And so when I did then allow other people to step in, I've been let down. So I went back to just doing it myself. But because I was always there and helping other people, that became easy. But to accept it, that was bloody hard. That was one of, I would have gone, I would prefer to go out and lift a whole mass of weights, do a whole mass of labor, dig holes and move the dirt and bring it back and all the rest of it. I could have done that all day long. But just take that one moment and say, can someone help me? That was too big a chore. So again, I think a lot of that for me was the fact that not feeling good enough. Therefore, if I told somebody I needed help, that was confirming I wasn't good enough. And I had to then deal with that. And because I don't want to face that, the easiest thing is not to ask for help.
Everybody's perfectly perfect as they are. Perfectly perfect. I like, it's, you know, And the people who are broken, I love it. It's how the light gets in, you know, that's how we learn. And it's funny, I talk about the pendulum swing, you know, you can only love as much as you feel pain. The more pain you felt, the more you love. It's amazing that it's like anything in life, you know, it's the yin yang. And look, I don't know what life's about, but I love the energy that we share, you know, and I know that every time we have a positive transaction, I leave this transaction and I take that positivity to the next transaction. So I'm giving them the love as well. That's why it's so important to check yourself, you know, and ask for help, because if you don't, you're carrying that negativity and the weight on your shoulders, and that goes into everywhere you go. You come home from work and you've just had a shit day and didn't ask for help and didn't get things done. Pressure comes home, going to see your wife and kids, and that's sitting on you because you haven't dealt with it. So you can actually just say, listen, I just need 5 minutes. I need to go and have a shower, wash the day off, come back and do that. And even that is asking for help, but in the right way. So,
two things that come up for me about that question that you asked, Mick. Why is it so hard for us to ask for help? So, firstly, from my own personal experience, I had, and the beliefs that I wasn't aware that I had until probably maybe only 5 years ago, but I had subconscious beliefs. First of all, everybody else was more important than me, and so I acted as if everybody else was more important than me, and I put everybody else first. And the second belief that I wasn't aware of until about 5 years ago was that I'm a bad person. That's what I believe subconsciously. And there are reasons for that. And it took me a long time to come to the realization that I wasn't a bad person, that I am a good person. I just made some decisions that you know, weren't the best at the time. So that's where it came from for me. And I'm still on the journey of asking for help, and I get better at it every day. And I think for a lot of people, from when I have conversations with people, one thing I've learnt on my own journey is that the subconscious mind is always listening, and it doesn't know context. So even something as simple as, you know, and I know that I would have done it to my own child, you know, maybe when she maybe stubbed her toe or something, I might have said something like, oh, suck it up, princess, you'll be right. Things like that as we're growing up reinforces this belief that we just need to toughen up and you know, we just need to forge on, and that it's just not, we're not given this message a lot of the time, and it's totally innocent. It's not meant to be negative, but as I said, the subconscious mind is always listening, and it doesn't get context. So you repeatedly get this message as you're growing up to toughen up and all of these things, and you're not getting the message that it's okay to ask for help, because people don't realise that that's a message. Everything is learned, and we're not going to learn these things unless somebody teaches us. So to be mindful of that when we're dealing with others, you know, I'm certainly mindful of that when my daughter's 25 now, and sometimes I'll go to say something and I'll think, oh, no, let's not say that. Let's word it differently, because even though she knows that I love her and she knows that I don't mean any harm, it's going into the subconscious, and it's important to be aware of that.
The whole word thing, that triggered to me was like when I first started this, I don't know, 35 years ago. One of the first things that we used to do this 3.5 hour seminar. That's all. That was our whole business was around 3.5 hour seminar. It was called Coach Any Dummy to Succeed, Even Yourself, and its premise was something I got from good old Zig Ziglar. You know, your input determines your output, and we kind of broke it down into a model. And one of the things that we talked about all of the time was words. and I don't think that most people really understand the power of words, and not just the words that Shari was talking about when you're communicating with somebody else, but the words that you use communicating to yourself can be so profoundly powerful, and you can get some pretty profound and fast changes just by changing your language. In fact, where I first cut my teeth teaching was time management, and I quite often used to say, you know, if we need, you know, someone would come to us and say, we need time management, but how long is this going to take? And, you know, how quick can you do this sort of thing? And it was a joke, but my thoughts and response to it was kind of, well, if I were to do the fastest time management seminar in the world, in the history, it would be simply this: change your words. Because time management isn't a series of techniques and all of that sort of stuff. It is fundamentally your ability to manage your emotional state. That's all time management is. It's purely self-management. And so the words were really powerful. And I just want to share real quick something that's never ever left me. And it was a story I heard told by Tony Robbins. I went and did Tony Robbins Mastery University back in the late 90s. And I think it was Life Mastery or something over in Hawaii we were going to, and you had to fill out all of this paperwork. And I just remember one of the questions was, what was something that was pivotal in your life? Like an event. Tell us what a pivotal event was in your life. And then the next question underneath that was, what did you learn from it? And anyway, we're all sitting there in Life Mastery in Kona with 1,000 of our closest friends around us. And Tony was talking from stage, basically, remember you filled out this form, remember we asked us questions, and I just want to help you to understand the power of words, because we've got a number of Vietnam vets in the audience with us tonight. And just by pure coincidence, the two of the guys, their pivotal event was almost identical. And the event was that they were in a foxhole fighting in a war situation. Their best mate beside them, their best mate boarded it and basically died in their arms. And then the next question is, what did you learn from that? And one guy basically said, what I learned from that are people are monsters. People will hurt you given the opportunity. And what I learned from that is always be aware and don't trust anybody. Second guy, identical situation. And he said it was kind of strange, but in that moment, it became so clear that life is so precious, it can be taken away from you in a heartbeat. And he said, I realized that I have to make every moment a masterpiece. And it's like, wow, exactly the same experience. The words you use, the labels that give that experience meaning, can change your life so radically. I mean, how is the guy's life showing up who doesn't trust anybody compared to the guy who needs to make every moment a masterpiece? What's the difference between their lives? And it's like, it was just such a powerful story. I never ever forget it. And it causes me to be very, very careful with my words when I remember.
It's a learning process. We're all learning.
So when somebody says something to us in a negative fashion, and that they could be right, they may not be right. But when we say it, well, we must be right. So our words are going to have far more impact than anybody else's words. They're like water torches. They're going to have to just wear away till it finally sinks in, because we learn by rote learning. But when it comes from us, well, it's got to be true. And we only have to say it once and the damage is done. Yeah.
Carrying the emotions behind your statements, one of the biggest things that I've learned. And Paul Purdon, a member of the Campfire, he and I talk about it often. You know, are we acting with love in our heart? Because if we are, we can only make a positive action. If we're coming from anger, then the impact of that and the energy that carries, like you got the two guys in that situation. One guy's carried anger all of his life and just fear. He has implemented that into every single person he's ever met, which then gets carried around. Whereas the other guy's gone, wow, can't believe how precious everything is, and just gets excited, and he's curious, and he shares the love and the passion and the excitement. It doesn't just affect you. It affects every interaction you have for the rest of your life.
That's it.
You know, and understanding that, and understanding that all you need to do to change a situation is to become curious about it. It changes your mindset. You know, and it's just, yeah, I love this world. I love the opportunities we're getting because we're sitting here learning and listening. You know, sitting here with, you know, 3 people that I can pretty much guarantee have all had a shitload of pain go through their life. That's why we can sit here with the love in our heart, but we don't express that pain anymore. And that's the key to actually making a big difference in the world, you know, and learning to ask for help.
They're realizing that everything is a choice. We choose how we handle things. Like I mentioned before that, you know, I raised 3 boys on my own when their mother left. Now I could continue hating her, or I then looked at it when she said that the boys didn't respect or love her. I thought, right, well, what did she bring into the marriage? What I got out of that union with her was 3 boys I love and respect. I wouldn't have had them if it hadn't been for that relationship. So I looked at her in a completely different light, and I was therefore able to build a relationship with her and get her to be more involved with the boys and co-parent. And so, but if I had had that choice of taking the one soldier whose life was doom and gloom, that's all I would have had all the way through. And I wouldn't have had that connection with my sons either. As you said, excuse me, Scott, everything's connected, and everything we do connects to everybody else. We are everybody else's environment, just as they are our environment. And everything we do affects the others around us, and that therefore causes them to do things that affects other people. So everything we do flows through. So we want to make a better world. Starts with, well, as far as me wanting to make a better world, it starts with me. Being the best version of myself, choosing the best approach to every situation that comes up, look at both sides and go, right, which is the one that I want here? Which one values me? Which one values the people around me? As I say, is it what's good for me, what's good for the other person, and what's good for the planet? And if I can look at that all the time, then I go, okay, if that's my purpose and my direction, then when my emotions might be out of sorts with somebody at that time, changing the heartbeat.
100%. And Mick gave me the biggest tool of my life. Take the word problem, turn it into opportunity. That changed me forever. I have no problems in my life. That's weird.
Just brilliantly disguised.
Yeah, but it's the curiosity, you know, like, and it keeps coming back to the circle of influence every single time. You know, like if you're in a safe environment, you can ask for help because you know that the people around you will support you.
Yeah.
Circle of influence creates better language skills for you.
I'd love to get people's thoughts on, because I've just been sort of sitting back listening to what I've been saying and everybody else has been saying in the third person. Quite amazed and excited, and you know, some things that you've just said, Alan, I thought, yeah, that is awesome. That is brilliant way to perceive things when there is a situation. The situation is the meaning you give it through your words and your interpretation. But my question is, what are your suggestions when you've got somebody that you're speaking to that is kind of the opposite of that? I mean, they see the cloud in every silver lining, no matter what. For example, buddy I went to school with and scouts and senior scouts. I haven't seen him for quite a number of years. Ran into him again just a few weeks ago, a couple of times. And the conversation always ends up about somebody else and, you know, they're very toxic and they've hurt me and you know, and it's just this all of the time. And the phrase that comes to me that I'd like to say, but I've been fortunate enough to shut my mouth successfully so far, is, dude, what seems to be the common denominator? Who seems to be showing up to all of these different situations? I haven't said it, I only thought it. He's a terrific guy, like he's a friend from school. How do you start the process of getting people to understand really personal responsibility is the key here? All of your situations and environments and outcomes will turn out better if you take personal responsibility. That's just me telling it. But how do we start to get people that are that far down that dark rabbit hole of blame to start to come back out?
First of all, if they're not ready to hear it, they won't. However, that doesn't mean that we don't do our best to try.
Yep.
One of the best ways so that they're not even going to be aware of what we're doing is metaphors. Telling a story about anybody else, about ourselves. I quite often tell stories and it might not, we might have not have even been talking about something like that. It might have just been, we might have said a flyaway thing 10 minutes ago and it'll niggle at me, and then I'll think of a situation in my life, and then somewhere I'll work it into the conversation about, you know, about myself. So they're not even aware of what I'm doing. However, you don't know when it's going to be the right time, when they're going to actually, and it might not be right then. It might be days later, it might be weeks later, it might be years later, and they're going to go, oh my gosh, why did I not get that before?
Yeah.
That's all you can do. That's what I do.
I'm always looking for, well, first of all, if I'm meeting, you know, for somebody from the very beginning, the first thing is I always say, I've got one mouth, two ears and two eyes. I use them in that proportion. I get as much information as I can. I let them exhaust themselves with what they're trying to tell me. And while I'm doing that, I'm looking for the secondary gain. Because for someone to latch onto misery and hold on to misery, there has to be something beneath it that they're getting some comfort out of it in some way, some recognition. And so if I can find that, and as Shari said, using metaphors that steer around that, so the more information I've got, I try and exhaust all the different possibilities before I take any action. That way I know I can steer in the right direction. I can also, well, I'm looking for the body language, I'm looking for the micro expressions on their face. I've got all of that. So I'm applying everything that I've learned over the years, and I apply that to it as well. But always realizing that, well, if somebody's life is crap and you come up and you say, well, look, if you just do this, it'll be completely different. And you hear, oh, that won't work. Have you ever tried that? No, I haven't, but I know it won't work. Straight away, I'm going, okay, what is it that they don't want to let go of by solving that issue right now? There's got to be something they get out, like somebody who's a perpetual victim. They get the sympathy, or there's other things like that that justifies their existence. And to take that away from them in that instance, you've left them naked, and that's terrifying. So you've got to do it in a very subtle and gentle way. The more they can then come up with the solution themselves. So like if you do this, you get nowhere. But if you ever walk beside somebody else, you just sort of lean against them or get closer to them, they just start to go in the other direction. It's a slow, gentle steering. But you can only do that if you're listening to them closely and you're picking up all the information as you go and go, okay, I can push a little harder, right? Oh, I need to ease off a bit. You'll ease off and they think they're back on the original track again. Then you give it another go. But it's also perseverance as well. And that comes into the love side of things from what Scott's saying. You've got to care about that other person enough to persevere as long as it takes, and it will take as long as it needs to take.
And leading by example.
If you're not doing that, you're not even getting started.
Now, take my advice. It's been no use to me.
It's really interesting because like it's a really tough one, because people always go towards pleasure and away from pain, right? And it's something that I find fascinating, because when someone comes to us with an opportunity of pain and they're blaming somebody else for it, I get curious about it. I said, well, why is that? Can you explain that to me so I can understand that better? And once they've explained that, I go, thank you. That's a good point. Is there anything else you need to share with me? Because I really want to understand this. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Actually, I saw it like this. What do you think of this option? Can you help me understand whether or not that's applicable or not? Because if it is, great. If not, that's fine. I don't mean to offend you, because I want to understand the situation. And every single time, it diffuses, because I'm curious. I've listened. They've felt heard. And I've thanked them.
Yeah.
And I think thank you is such an underutilized word in conflict. Because one of the good things I work with a lot of the guys at the minute is when you're having conflict, thank somebody for it. Thank you for that. I didn't see it like that. Thank you. I can't handle that right now. But is it all right if I get back to you? And what are you thanking me for? But here's the thing. You go to a restaurant, you pay the bill, you say thank you. You finish the transaction, you walk away. Thank you is one of the most powerful words we have in the English dictionary. We don't use it enough. You know, and I don't think we should be using it all the time to support people. I think we should be have more, Mick, a word from you, specificity, when we actually want to thank somebody.
Just so you know, I didn't invent it, Scott. But...
No, I know, but you drilled it into my head.
Okay.
But it's, you know, like when you're saying thank you to somebody, I really appreciate what you've done tonight. The dinner was lovely because the peas tasted better than they've ever tasted before. I really appreciate that. Thank you, short and sharp, doesn't cut that. It's not felt. Thank you, short and sharp, closes the conversation. Appreciation takes it, or gratitude takes it to the next level. And I love talking about a cup of coffee. You know, at the moment, all the boys, everyone's getting around doing all the gratitude and all the bits and pieces. And, you know, it's as simple as, you know, I'm grateful for a cup of coffee. Well, I'm actually grateful for the coffee bean that was planted and then grown and then got harvested and then went to the factory, then went to got bagged and then went to the shipping yard, sent over in the boat, and then went to the warehouse and then put it on the shelf just to have your cup of coffee. If you can take your gratitude to the specificity, that's where time's getting on.
Yeah, I think it's a case of making sure that we're genuine about what we're doing. The people will pick that up. So that's very important. Now, we started out with the conversation looking at, well, what were we grateful for the year? I think we've covered a hell of a lot of stuff. Normally at the end of these, I ask everybody, well, what's a major thing that you would share with other people? What do you pick, each of you, what are you going to pick out of all of the stuff we've talked about that you could share with people? I can start with you, Shari.
So I'm going to say that the biggest thing was for me to realise that I really do have so many more blessings than I even already knew that I had. There's just blessings everywhere that we look. There's so much to be grateful for, and this time has definitely shown me that that it doesn't matter what's going on, there's still so much to be grateful for.
Mick.
I'm going to circle right back round to what I said right at the start, but just in relation to this conversation, like I could have been watching Foxtel for the last hour. But this is a significantly better investment of my time. Sure, I get to contribute to the conversation, but I've learnt so much tonight. Your input determines your output. The input that I would have gotten from tonight in this discussion, in this little community, is significantly more valuable in the long term than what I would have gotten input from Foxtel or commercial TV for that matter. But, you know, I just really appreciate the opportunity to be invited onto these panels and have this discussion and hang out with some really cool people who say some really cool things. And I appreciate the opportunity.
Excellent. And Scott.
I'm going to stick with Mick on this. Input determines your output,
Mm.
you know, and for people that watch this, thank you, because it's an investment in you and you're worth it. The more time you spend with good people, listening to what other people have to say, the more you grow. You can't help but grow when you listen. So
That's it. And for me, I think, as we said before, I've been my most powerful, my strongest, my most connected, felt the most joy, funny enough, when I've asked for help. And that's the major thing that I've learnt in this year.
Wow.
And that's another reason why thank everybody for being here, and yep, never go anywhere without one. And actually, by the way, I've watched a lot of the lives that have been happening in the Victorian Brotherhood, and I very seldom see any of them walking around without one of these. They might have it stuck on their, they're wearing their t-shirts and they've got it stuck in their collar. Wherever they go, they've got a pen.
Yeah.
That is, I'm also grateful for, because every one of these men are changing their world, and that's changing my world as well, because they will affect the community. They might be in Melbourne and I'm in Newcastle, but through the people that they connect, will connect through to Sydney and all the other areas, and finally through to me and beyond. So just remember that everybody, you're everybody else's environment. And if you want to help people, look after yourself and ask for help.
I'm learning.
We all are.
Most important thing I'll ever learn is the next thing I learn after I think I know everything.
Never going to know everything.
That's it.
I know someone who does.
Joe?
No.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks very much for being in here. As I say, these conversations, the one-on-ones and everything else, this is what's made my year, is sharing that space with people. And as you've said, Scott, everybody has value. And if you just look for it, you can enjoy that value. So again, thank you all for being here. And to everybody else, I always say, I hope you get a lot out of this. Again, listen to it a few times, pick up the gems that have been shared with everybody here. And you've got their contact details, and I'm pretty sure that everyone here is happy to have somebody put their hand up and ask them for advice, or just have someone to talk to when you need it. Again, thanks everybody, and to everybody else, we'll see you on the next campfire. Bye for now.